about the digitalization of real estate. To start with Niels. Niels, very welcome, of course, as well. Could you explain to me what it is you do? And I'd like you to use the word boxer in your answer. You know, one of those fighters. Thank you.
Yeah, so I introduced myself also this morning, so you guys have a pretty good idea what I'm doing. The boxing thing is kind of funny because I know where it's coming from, and I'll tell you a very quick story that also was brought up briefly this morning. So for instance, there is a very famous boxer, and he has a house in Vegas, and that house was sold to a guy in the crypto world who wanted to hedge his bets, because Bitcoin was at $19,000 per Bitcoin, and he could get his hands on this piece of property that has a definite incremental value because it's the home of a very famous boxer. It's been in movies, the tigers living there, all that kind of stuff. And you could buy that house for Bitcoins at 19,000 bucks. He actually got also below market value to begin with, but right now that house is basically underrepresented with about 300 to 400% basically, or factor 3, factor 4. So my eyes popped open a few weeks ago, and I saw this owner two days ago in London, and I asked him, I said, would it be a good idea to tokenize the house? Just give me the house, or we put it in a BV in the Netherlands, for instance, and we give you half the shares, the other half we give to the public, and they can invest in this really famous house. And with the proceeds, you can redo the house a bit better, you can renovate it, and you can sell it. And I cannot say the token is going to go up in price because I'm not supposed to be a broker-dealer, but I think it's a very nice proposition and a very cool way for the public to do a crowdfund mechanism to get their hands on a very unique piece of property that actually also benefits the owner. So that's kind of where the boxer, I think, came from.
Thank you. Very nice example, I think, of how blockchain is already being applied in this famous house.
So it's not done yet, by the way. It's not done yet. We're working with a boxer, and he'll kick my ass if I tell you. If he knows about this, he'll kick my ass. So don't say anything.
Right. So keep this to ourselves. Cameras off, please. Well, too late. Thank you very much, Petra. Sorry, so this is Petra Katja. I'm really sorry, Katja. Could you tell us how a employment law expert is now here on a panel discussing the digitalization of real estate assets?
That's a good question. No, I think maybe that's also because I'm an employment lawyer. When it comes to technology, it's all about knowledge. It's all about making sure that people are educated, that they understand how technology works, how it's implemented. And what I really like is the combination of employment and tech, which brings it back into the human capital agenda, for example, in the Dutch Blockchain Coalition, where we try to increase the speed of knowledge for students in colleges, universities, on blockchain possibilities. Also be critical, when would you use it, when would you not use it? And it starts with knowledge, because if you don't educate people, students or employees or employers and corporates, we cannot really speed up the implementation of blockchain. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. So next to you is sitting Rudolf, and well, there's Paris, there's Madrid, there's Prague, there's even Moscow, but Rudolf has decided to go to Budapest to do business. Why Budapest?
Well, I come from the recruitment business. I worked there in 12 years on. We were searching for jobs here in Amsterdam, in the whole Netherlands. But the people we were searching in Hungary, Romania, later the whole EU. But yeah, over time we opened the office in Budapest. I moved there, then I stayed, now I live there. Then I found out it's a really booming real estate market, like many cities here. But then I found also out that the fastest growth is being made in Budapest, in the whole Europe. So then I thought it's a really interesting place to invest in real estate.
Okay, tell us a little something about how you are investing there. What are you doing exactly?
I started last year to buy small apartments and change then the interior in a smart interior, and I call this concept micro city lofts, because small apartments, it wouldn't be enough for people, because if we take the 4 walls of 30 square meters, it would look like a hotel room. Your bed would be in the middle of the living room. This is not how people want to live. So then we're looking at in Asia. They have this problem for decades. There they found a solution in smart interior. So this concept I wanted to bring to Budapest, and then I was doing it apartment by apartment, but it goes very slow. I want to do this in a bigger way, building by building, but for that I need funding. So yeah, this is
That's
how
where tokenization comes in, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So next to me, last but not least, Jaap. What would you say? Are you first and foremost a financial man or a teacher?
Well, maybe I'm first of all a teacher, and that's why I'm very delighted with Katja's words. It's all about education, because I think it is. And in the last year I discovered something strange. Jeremy was just talking about a disruptive sector referring to building. But my business is educating people in the financial sector, and well, I would also refer to that as a bit of a disruptive sector. And last year we discovered, when we started courses on blockchain, that my usual people who followed my courses usually come in and say to me, well, Jaap, what are you going to learn me? But now when it's about blockchain, they come in and say, we don't know nothing, and we want to learn everything about it. So this sector really needs education. I think that's very important. And as a little illustration, I would say this week, actually on last Monday, I went to the notary to make the selling of my house definitive, and what happened was, I asked for a redemption request to the bank, and the bank gave it to me, and it looked quite okay. So it was paid, but afterwards I discovered at least 2 faults in the redemption request. So it was a bit of a mess. So that's why I think it's a kind of disruptive sector, and the human error should be cut out of this kind of transactions, and blockchain might help with it.
And so there's room for improvement there. And
I think so.
the traditional banks are not living up to it, they said it, they can make mistakes. As of, until last year, I actually worked for the Dutch Banking Association. So we represented the banking sector, and there we, for several years now, also had the discussion, of course. So everything we see happening with fintech, with other small players that are agile, that are fast, that are smart, what will it do for the financial system, for banks? Can they survive? But now that I'm working in the real estate sector, I must say that, this is, I think, the first meeting I've heard of even that discusses this change, the technology in relation to real estate. So perhaps, and the question is to all of you, you could give us some examples of this technology already being applied in relation to real estate. Is it happening already or not?
Yeah, I think there are 2 distinctive terms. You have PropTech and you have the investment part of it. So I know of a company in the US called CProp. They work with Zillow, a very big portal in the States. They also work with Remax, one of the biggest real estate agents in the States. They have an app, and the app you walk through a residential building, and you visit a checkbox, and the realtor checks the boxes. This room is like this, so big, and so many windows, whatever, and all this stuff gets put on the blockchain. What they're basically building is almost like a Carfax, how do you call it in Holland? It's the National Autopas, I think, in Holland, for buildings. That's a very powerful tool for sellers and buyers, as well as for the real estate agents themselves. So that's a PropTech part of it. If you look at the financial part of it, or the finance part of it, it's a bit different. We were in London 2 days ago, and we spoke to a property developer in Canary Wharf, who was telling us that they have all these big buildings going up, and it used to be that if the building goes up, they have a whole line of people outside the door for the open house, and they sell out every single apartment they have inside those buildings. But not so much anymore. They sell 80%, 85%, and the rest is still a golden market. So he said, what I like to do is I like to have a sales office doing the open house for people that want to buy the units, and then a sales office for people that want to buy the tokens in the remaining, say, 50% that I reserve for that. So now I can have people that have less money invest in part of these units, and they actually benefit from the rental income. So you create an income stream for those people as well, because people like to have additional income. So there's also a use case that could be developed, and which we are looking at actually as a company in London.
Rudolf, is that the application you're also looking at?
Well, we are looking to it from the funding part, but yeah, it's not happening a lot yet. Simply, I think, because the regulations are very complicated. Because you want to make funding for real estate, then you have to simply follow traditional regulations. They exist, and they are complicated to follow, especially for startups like us. For the funding part, so I did this search. I want to do funding in this new type with crypto funding, but I found there is no straightforward solution yet. So every advisor, every lawyer you speak to, they would come with another solution. Other countries, Switzerland, Netherlands, Malta, but also how you set those things up. Everybody has another opinion about it. So when it comes to funding, it really comes to my decision, where I have a good feeling with, and build my own decision myself of a solution.
So I think in real estate you see a couple of things. There's a group focusing on what would it look like if we would have object identity. So not only self-sovereign identity for people, but also object identity. It's a group that the Royal Notarian Association, the KNB, is also working on. The PropTech, as Niels explained, it makes a lot of sense. If you start building a building, I think the people from the company Look already do that. They register all the materials of a building on the blockchain, and if you would register everything that happens all around regarding one building, so finance, insurance, maintenance, who rents, what are the payments. Imagine if you want to buy such a building, how easy it would be just to open the blockchain and have all the information time-stamped, instead of having lawyers, tax advisors, banks, everyone working from their silo to give you information about a property you might want to buy. So that is something which is really interesting. We work with the people from Legal Things One network on creating live contracts, and basically we translated lease contracts into smart contracts. And if you would store all of that on a blockchain, I think there are a number of live solutions already happening. When it comes to, of course, tokenizing real estate in the Netherlands, you do not really buy an actual piece of the property you buy. It's basically a contractual agreement. And I know there are people here sitting in the room who are already doing that, so who could also share. Walter, maybe you want to say something about that later on what you're doing. So things are already happening.
So yeah, Walter, it might be a good time now if you would like to explain what you're doing. I'll be right over.
Well, it's actually not us that doing it directly, but what we developed is a platform called Bondex, and it's actually a platform for selling corporate bonds. And one of the customers that we have is BrickChain, and they are actually running a real estate investment fund. So that's a fund. I think it's just under 5 million because of the AFM regulations in the Netherlands, and they are basically allowing you to use it as a savings product. So you can invest for, I think, 10 euros. You can buy one of their bonds in their funds, and they are actually buying the houses, I think, in their case. Yeah, so that is happening, but as Katja said, you're not yet directly buying a piece of ownership into a building, because that's simply legally impossible to do at the moment in the Netherlands.
Still, I'm surprised by what you said about for 10 euros you can participate, right? Because usually in an investment fund you need what, maybe 50,000 or maybe even more before you can. But this is really
Most traditional investment funds start at 1,000 euros in the Netherlands, but they went down to 10 euros because the whole administration, everything is organized on the blockchain, so they have very little costs for actually maintaining the bondholder registers and all that stuff. And of course, the next big step that they are working on is to actually, of course, the tokens are transferable. So the next thing is to actually make a secondary market where you can actually trade them and sell them. Because that's another big problem with real estate funds in the Netherlands, that you invest in them and they maybe have a 4, 5, 6 year lifetime. You can't get out. Yeah, so when the token is tradable on the blockchain, you can actually get out on a secondary market and you can try to sell it again. Of course, liquidity will be a big question mark, but at least technically you can try to find a counterparty and sell your bonds.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So I can already now distinguish two different types of application of blockchain technology. Right, first of the finance, which as I can hear now, Walter's story reminds me of the democratization, right, of the finance of real estate. If you can participate with only 10 euros already, very low costs, it means that a lot more people can get access to this real estate market, which I think is might be a very interesting and maybe even impactful development. The second application is actually putting all these different bits of information about an object into a token, so not just the finance, but also, the circular material maybe even that it was built with, that could be sold again later, the rental income, the price, of course, all these things you can put into a token, and that might actually upset, or at least impact, in a positive way perhaps, the structure, the ecosystem that we have now, with all these professionals around it, right? The notary, most notably, but also other like the manager of the real estate. Perhaps it would be interesting to look into that second example, the second application. What would this mean for the way that we are dealing with real estate transactions now at the moment, with so many different parties involved? Would anybody like to go into that?
Yeah, I would say you get a lower threshold for entering the real estate market. When I look to my trainees, I could divide them in two different groups. On the one hand, I see the group of people who have a lot of money and sometimes also have a lot of real estate, but they're looking for leverage, for improving their yield. So I think that would be an important target group. But on the other hand, there's also a group of people nowadays entering real estate market. Young people, usually not so fortunate to have a lot of money, but for them, the threshold will be much lower to enter the market, and so give a boost to what the possibilities in that market with their knowledge and their added value.
I see a good functionality in tracking the building process, because one of us who has bought a newly built flat, somehow it always gets delayed, and also never you got informed about it. You have to ask it yourself, and maybe they wouldn't even pick up the phone. You have to try 5 times. All this information about the whole building process, I think that could also be good on the blockchain. So every buyer of those flats, they can follow the whole process transparently.
think it leads to much more transparency and also obliging notaries, insurance companies, lawyers to work in a different way. And if you would have all of this organized on a blockchain, I'm looking at Frederik Prins, who is here from Lexit, from the basically first marketplace eBay for M&A transactions on the blockchain. Just imagine that you can just basically upload your information on the platform of Lexit and in that way sell parts of your real estate. I mean, it makes the whole process much more transparent, much more efficient, much lower cost if you want to step into transactions. I see many benefits actually.
There's also a cost savings benefit and also a value increasement benefit as well. There's a company out there, and they do data sharing of the energy performance of big buildings. We were in Singapore at a conference back in, I think it was August last year, and we were at the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. And I was reading about the building, and the building cost, I don't know, 1.3 billion to build or whatever it was. And it was live in 2006. And in 2009, they decided to rip out 42,000 light bulbs and replace them with different light bulbs. The cost savings after 5 years was so much that they thought, well, the building owners thought that they would enhance the value of the property by 5%, just with light bulbs. And they did it because they were comparing real-time data on their energy consumption and performance with similar buildings around the world. So having these kinds of systems in place and having stakeholders actually actively be part of it can also actually enhance the value of your assets and also save you money.
Very interesting. So we've identified several opportunities now, the upside of blockchain, applying blockchain in real estate. Are there any risks involved? Is there a possible downside?
I think the really big risk, the really big thing is also, I think, is the big elephant in the room, and it's called crypto and token and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the people that I think should be entering this market, and they will be entering this market, are still, for a large part, scared away by terminology and connotations that are there from the past. And I think Jaap was talking about teaching people how to use new tools and new technologies. I think as an industry, the blockchain industry, or the people that run the crypto industry, have to do a much better job also showing people how to use these things. How does a wallet work? How do you secure things? What's a private key? How do you and what's a decentralized application versus a centralized one? And what does it entail from a security point of view, a hacking point of view? All these things. I mean, I look in the room and see my father sitting there. He's 50 plus. I mean. Would you really think that he will put 8 million euros in a crypto wallet or something? And then he says, well, it's on a Trezor, your desk drawer? Of course not. I mean, and how does a wallet work? I mean, just to set it up with verification and everything, it will take him probably 3 days, if it's not longer. If I'm not around to help him at least. But I mean, so I think from an industry perspective, there's a lot to be done also to actually onboard people because they do not understand or know how to do it correctly.
I think it's the challenge, and I see many people working on that, is bringing the old world and the new world together. So the new startups, scale-ups in real estate, tokenization, bring them together with traditional parties. What we see in the Netherlands that the notaries are very active in exploring how does a blockchain work, how would a real estate transaction on a blockchain work. Is the only limitation the notary that you must go to in person? We see other regulators participating. So if you would bring all the new together, that would speed it up. So I don't see the risk. The risk would be if people opt out. If they think, well, you just go ahead with your new thing and I will do it in the old way. You need to bring those two together. I think it's an opportunity in the end.
So, yeah.
So I really agree. When I said it, when I started the talking this afternoon, I already said, when I look to my students who come to the blockchain training, they're mostly people from the financial sector, and they almost know nothing about it. So there's a lot to be done. And sometimes when I give a different training, not about blockchain, I start with like a teaser with blockchain, and a lot of people start laughing about blockchain. That's nothing, that's just bitcoins. And as long as people think in that way about it, well, we really need some change. And I try my best at talking enthusiastic about it and teaching some things, but that's what we really need to do, make a change and make people aware of the possibilities, but also of the risks.
And what we need is, I mean, we need to have good actors. We have to incentivize good behavior. I mean, I come from the industry that does events like these events, right? And we've done these kinds of events. We've asked banks to host them, for instance. 8 out of 10 times, the bank would say, "Not in our building because you guys are going to talk about crypto, and we don't want to talk about this stuff." However, if we talk to the banks themselves privately, they're doing all this stuff right now, but they don't want the connotation can be tricky. So what we really need to also safeguard. That's also why it's great that we are hosted here today at CMS, which is actually the biggest tech law firm I think in Europe, if I'm not mistaken, to show that this is actually not a topic subject anymore for people in shorts and t-shirts. I mean, it's people in suits here and with careers, and the average age is not 23 years old either. So it is real, it's there, but we need to make sure also going forward that we do it right.
But if I can say something in favor of banks, I see a lot of banks that are very active in this area and really experimenting and joining hackathons. ING is very focused on their tech activities, such as ABN, Rabobank. So I really see things happening in the banking industry. But mainly, I think the front runners in those banks, but things are happening.
Well, thank you. We have a few more minutes, so I think we need to round up. But before we do, I'd like to ask the public to agree or disagree with the following statement, having heard this panel. So, if I say the tokenization of real estate assets will greatly reduce the costs and increase the efficiency of real estate transactions, would you agree or not? Can I see? Yeah, so I think about 2/3 are believers, so you've convinced the public very well. Would anybody like to comment on this statement?
I would like to hear from someone who did not raise his or her hand.
Yes, who did not raise their hand?
Was sleeping,
Believe in the... Well, now you can raise your hand. Anybody who kept their hand down before? Yes, sir, can you?
Yeah, how do you solve the liquidity problem when you want to buy or sell your real estate security token? That's what I think will be quite difficult.
That's indeed still a question. Only the market can tell us. For example, in our case, we will first go through the funding process. Then token will be created. Later on it can only be tradable, but for example this issue is not even solved yet by any country. I think Malta takes the lead now and everybody's talking about July and we hope they will solve it. I believe they will solve it. But of course when it enters the exchange, only then the market can tell if there is any liquidity. Of course you have market makers who live from the spread and maybe they will trade in my token. But only the future can tell us.
Actually, I think the question is very valid because you have that distribution, otherwise it won't work. I mean, garbage in, garbage out, it's very simple. I mean, and I'm a very strong believer in tokenizing existing assets and make those available to a larger group of investors. So, for instance, the example in London where you can, in addition to buying a unit, also buy parts of the units. You actually open up to a new breed of investors. And I was talking to a pension fund in London on Tuesday, and they explained that they have two buckets. They have a bucket of assets that they consider liquid and a bucket of assets that they consider illiquid. Real estate is considered to be illiquid in their point of view, but it's actually a very strong asset because of the value that it represents. So if we can actually unlock that asset and bring it into the liquid pile, you unlock basically the holy grail of liquidity. And that's what you strive to do. And it's difficult, but I think that's where you get to. If you, and it's not, I'm not talking from the funding part point of view, but if you tokenize existing assets and make them available to more people, that's what you can get, I think.
Okay, well, I think that's actually a nice conclusion. Perhaps, Rudolf, you'd like to add something?
No, it is indeed very interesting to look to see how the future turns out, because what we want to do is basically an IPO, but you can say a mini IPO. One of the speakers in the morning called it also a mini IPO. Yeah, will people trade in that? That's there's no answer today. It's a risk. I take that risk. I'm spending loads of money on lawyers and marketing to get this funding. Everybody advised me, why not the traditional way? It's much cheaper. Nobody has problems with funding the traditional way. But I like to do it this way also, because I believe for a startup like us, you have an experienced team. You have the real estate developer in our team has 45 years of experience actually here in Amsterdam, building thousands of homes. As a group together, we are a startup, and for the funding part, the traditional way, I believe, is more difficult, especially in Hungary. They asked me, I spoke yesterday to the biggest bank in Hungary, and they asked me how much I would be happy with. I said 3 million euros, and then they said, oh, that's a lot of money, and that will be difficult. In crypto world, they are laughing about 3 million, and I talked to platforms. They have like a minimum limit of 5 million euros or 10 million euros. So this is one of the reasons why I tried a new way. But it's not cheap. Does it come cheap?
If you're still looking for finances, perhaps there was someone in the audience today, and well, there you go.
Who knows?
So to wrap it up, one time again, hands up if you think that within 5 years the tokenization will be the dominant method of financing real estate. Within 5 years it will be the dominant method. Who says I agree? Some doubt, but there's still some people believing. All right. Well, I guess only time will tell. Change comes fast, so who knows? I think we've had an interesting debate about the application, the possible application of.
But I was, for example, also yesterday speaking to a real estate developer. They're also creating funds. They're big in Eastern Europe, but their fund is based in Luxembourg. And yeah, they are experimenting. That was already surprising for me, because I thought I was like a first mover. But then this very big company also already investigating, and they want to take one part of their fund and tokenize it. So this is, I think, a sign that in 5 years from now this will be the standard.
A way of unbeliever. Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Jaap, Niels. I'm afraid to say because I said Petra at the beginning.
I said Chairman.
Katja and Rudolf and Jaap, of course. Thank you very much. Can I please have a big warm round of applause for our panel?